When bad things happen to our money in the bank, it's best to look into what's being done by these institutions to try and correct them. And most times, they try and do the right thing. And while it's easy to pin the blame on these banks, we are also always told not to trust phone calls and messages right away, even though these scammers are really convincing. Now, with the story that I have for you guys later, you'll see that the people at this bank did everything they could to try to help. Something that I really highly appreciate. When was the last time someone went above and beyond for you? Now, here's someone who went above and beyond for a friend. So this banker works for a bank and decides to provide insider knowledge to a friend. And as you can guess, this story does not end well. We're also going to be talking about what's happening with credit cards, and you guessed it again, things are not okay. In fact, they are very far from being okay. And the same can be said between Ford and Tesla, as the CEO of Ford seems to have some real beef with the EV car company, as he says that their Cybertruck is for the Silicon Valley people and that the Ford F-150's Lightning electric truck is for real people who do real work. Anybody here who drives a Tesla or a Ford? What are your thoughts on that? Now, on that note, thousands of writers made their thoughts known as the writers' strike continues. Do you guys believe that creativity is still worth as much these days? And will AI replace these kinds of jobs? Even though layoffs have become the norm in the economy, it looks as if the jobs require critical thinking and imagination are much harder to get rid of. Anyway, guys, no time to waste. Let's get right to the updates. Scams are horrible, and mostly they're targeted towards elders who may not be as technologically savvy or updated as the rest of us. But do me a favor, just go ahead and tag them or share this video to them, because this is very, very important. This happened with Wells Fargo, where a customer, Ann Boras, received a call from a scammer who posed as a banker and took $20,000 from her. So let me give you guys a quick rundown. So the scammer calls and says, "Hey, I'm from Wells Fargo. Are you trying to wire $20,000 to your savings account?" Ann, of course, says no. And the guy on the line says, well, that this is definitely fraud, and that he suggests that this money is transferred over to the fraud department where it would be safe. Now, the first red flag here is that banks usually don't even call you out of the blue like this. And they never tell you to wire to any other accounts, because they could easily just cancel the transfer themselves, or heck, they could just move the money. So anyway, she believed him, unfortunately, and wired $20,000. After that, the scammer said that another $5,000 was being sent out as fraud. So again, she transferred it to this imaginary department where they will protect her money. But it doesn't end there, because this guy then said that there was yet another fraudulent transfer for $3,500. So this kind of shook Ann up a bit, because how the heck does someone have access to all of her accounts? So she goes to a nearby Wells Fargo, and with the scammer still on the phone, told the teller that her accounts were compromised. The teller then discreetly told her that you're most probably talking to a scammer. She broke down and of course asked for help to stop the transfers. Unfortunately, this branch could not help her, so she raced to another branch where a banker was able to stop the $5,000 transfer, but the initial $20,000 had already gone through. Now, I need to ask you guys, would you blame the bank for this? Because she's not getting that $20,000 back at all. And remember, folks, banks will never call you out of the blue like this. They probably offer you a credit card, but they wouldn't ask you to just transfer money like that. Now, we're not straying too far away from banks, as this ex-Goldman Sachs banker has just been convicted of insider trading by a New York jury recently. Now, this just goes to show that it's not the bank's fault that these things happen. Sometimes it's the fault of the people within them that make them look bad. Now, here's something that's actually really bad. Credit card interest rates going up, and of course, the average right now, I'm talking about just the average, right? It is 20.69% right now. Now, just go ahead and let that interest rate sink in. That's a record, folks.
Credit card balances have hit an all-time high just as rates are rising everywhere thanks to the Fed's rate hikes. Home equity loans, they're costing now around 8%. This according to Bankrate. 30-year mortgages around 6.5%. Used car loans over 10%. And credit cards, they are over 20%. For more, let's bring in Greg McBride, Chief Financial Analyst at Bankrate.com. Greg, how are these rising rates ultimately going to affect consumers? Are they eventually going to cut back on their spending? Must they?
Discretionary spending, I think, is very suspect, Tyler, because of the fact that more and more of the household budget is being impacted by inflation, but then also these higher interest costs. We've seen credit card balances go up because increasingly households are having to lean on their credit card for necessary expenses. So you have more people carrying balances, higher balances, aggregate balances we've ever seen at a time when interest rates are the highest. And so, even if they're not out buying cars or buying homes, servicing that existing variable rate debt has become increasingly costly.
With the Federal Reserve raising interest rates 10 times since last year, the fastest pace since the 1980s, we're also seeing records being broken in many different markets and sectors. And yes, I know that the Fed paused the interest rate hikes with the last June meeting, but do any of you guys think that we're anywhere near 2% inflation right now? Michelle Ranieri, Vice President and Head of the U.S. Research and Consulting at TransUnion, she said this, quote, "While the skip means interest rates may not rise again this month, the high credit card interest rates consumers are currently seeing are going nowhere anytime soon." End quote. And just to give you guys an idea how bad it is right now, look at this. Credit card balances in the country was sitting at less than $750 billion back in January of 2021. And just 2 years later, we are now at almost $950 billion. And this is why I continue to say that, you have to get rid of your credit card debt, especially as things are only going to get worse. Do any of you guys expect the Federal Reserve to reverse course anytime soon? Or are they going to raise interest rates again at their next meeting? Chances are that the latter will happen. Cleaning up our debt also relies on us having a consistent cash flow, meaning that you get a paycheck every 2 weeks. Maybe you work a 9 to 5, maybe you're self-employed. You budget it properly so that you can chop away at those credit cards. Now, one job that Hollywood has had since the beginning of Hollywood is the job of a writer. Now, these people bring uniqueness and ideas to the table, something that robots and AI just can't crack yet, which is why writers are negotiating for fairness, especially when it comes to their compensation. A recent rally in LA brought out 5,000 plus demonstrators who supported the writer's strike and continue to push pressure on studios to be fair. Now, it's been weeks, but protesters feel as if they're driving close to a breakthrough, especially since many shows and movies have been held up by these rallies. Now, I know I snuck in the word driving, but it's for a good reason. Ford and Tesla are both in the EV business, but Ford's chief executive, Jim Farley, he's creating even more beef as he's saying that their trucks are actually made for people who work. Here's what he said, quote, "The reality is America loves an underdog, and we are the market leader for EV trucks and vans, and we know those customers better than anyone. If he wants to design a Cybertruck for Silicon Valley people, fine." End quote. I mean, what do you guys make of this? Both the Tesla Cybertruck and the Ford F-150 Lightning are priced within $60,000 up to $100,000 each. Okay, almost $100,000, but it's close enough for me. Meaning that these bad boys are probably going to be beasts, but at the same time, they're obviously pricey. Are you looking to get one of these trucks soon? Tell you what, before I get to the end, go ahead and comment the car that you're driving in the comment section down below. It sure would be nice to get a brand new car, huh? One with all the bells and whistles. However, and this is the important part, a lot of us are struggling with debt. Now, like I discussed earlier, a lot of us are holding on to mountains of credit card debt, car payments, house notes, student loans. I mean, when you mix that in with inflation, food prices, gas, rent, mortgages, and well, it's just kind of hard to imagine having a cash flow that can buy you what you want. But here's the thing, there's actually lots of ways and opportunities to create multiple streams of income. There's small businesses, home-based businesses, side hustles, e-commerce, Amazon FBA, drop shipping, you name it. Now, all of these different ventures could possibly be profitable so long as you're in the right niche. You can also make money while you sleep if you happen to invest wisely in the stock market, perhaps the real estate market, investing in ETFs, index funds to generate passive income. There's also investments in gold and silver. Now, if you're interested in learning more about these different methods, definitely drop me some comments down below. Financial freedom is possible during a downturn like this, but you gotta work hard and have the right knowledge. Now, before I go, guys, please show some love by dropping a quick like for the video, share this video on your social accounts, and if you haven't already, subscribe for your daily dose of the truth. I really appreciate you guys, and I will catch you on the next one.